Hey guys, thanks for sticking around and joining me again for the continuing fallout from WWE's Night of Champions. As you know, the Raw show post-pay-per-view are usually pretty entertaining because you've got continuation of the storylines and the results that happened the night before, and especially now that football season is back in full swing, the WWE really has to step it up and try to compete for viewers because they're going up against Monday Night Football, which is no easy task. So they started out last night's show pretty strong on Raw with the Wyatt family coming out, talking about their victory over Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose. Roman Reigns didn't want to have any of it, so he came down, interrupts. Dean Ambrose comes down. Of course, a brawl breaks out, and a lot of people, I think, were expecting Chris Jericho maybe to show up because he was involved in and he really cost them the victory at Night of Champions. But instead, we get Randy Orton, whose appearance actually made more sense because he had more direct interaction recently with the Wyatt family. So we can get a team up of them later on for maybe the next pay-per-view and stuff like that. At least he makes a little more sense than Chris Jericho, which we already talked about in our last video about Night of Champions. We finally get some resolution as to what happened in the ending of Night of Champions, where Kane came out, chokeslammed Seth Rollins, he chokeslammed Sheamus, and really allowed Seth Rollins to retain his championship and prevented Sheamus from cashing in his Money in the Bank. So Seth Rollins is looking for the Authority, and he's in their office, and there's Kane. But it's not the Demon Kane, it's Corporate Kane. I gotta admit, I was intrigued at this point. I'm like, okay, so it's Corporate Kane sipping from a coffee mug that says, World's Greatest Director of Operations, which I thought was great. So now they've thrown us for a little bit of a loop, which is good. Anytime the WWE can surprise you, I'm happy. I'm glad that they didn't go full on, hey, Kane's back and he's roaming around backstage and he's a demon and he's burned up. I'm glad they didn't just abandon the fact that, hey, Kane is a corporate shill. Now they're having us try to decide, okay, is he playing mind games with Seth Rollins? Does he have a split personality? What's going on? So they're at least keeping us interested, if nothing else. If the mask, of course, was noticeably missing from the display case, which would be discussed later. But that was one of the first things I noticed was that, well, it's sitting right there on the table. It's in the middle of the shot. They want you to see that. I'm happy that they've teamed up the Ascension with Stardust. I thought the Ascension got a really raw deal getting called up from NXT and then essentially getting put into squash matches and having little to no success, which didn't make any sense to me. You obviously have enough confidence in this tag team to bring them up from your developmental program, NXT, and then you just book them terribly. I really don't understand that. But you want to put them together with another really outlandish character like Stardust and create this kind of comic book-esque tag team, I'm great. I'm all about it. These guys do have talent. Connor and Victor are not bad wrestlers, so the Ascension's not a terrible tag team. They just suffer from terrible booking. And of course, the Authority, they're not aware of Kane either, so I thought it was kind of funny. It was almost like Seth Rollins was going crazy when he goes up to Triple H and he's like, Kane's here and da-da-da, and the Authority, Triple H says, anything, we don't know what you're talking about. It reminded me of the scene in The Shining where Jack Nicholson is talking to the kind of bathroom attendant and he says, you've always been the caretaker, Mr. Torrance. I thought that would have been that would have been a little bit too cheesy for even WWE to do, but it was still kind of funny to see the look of confusion on everybody's face, at least for the time being, and it kept us wondering, okay, where are they going to take this, which is always a good thing. Bo Dallas, God, I feel bad for him. He's the de facto leader of the Job Squad now. If any of you remember the poor Job Squad, I mean, he's the Blue Meanie. He's all of these things over again. He's just the permanent jobber. Again, a guy they bring up from NXT, and this is how they treat him. Worse than a mid-card wrestler, worse than 3MB. So he has a great gimmick, a hilarious gimmick, and yet this is how he gets treated. You know what? Okay, that's just the way they're doing it. Hey, look, it's Ric Flair, and he's crying. Remember what we talked about before? Oh, it's Charlotte. She's related to Ric Flair. Drink, and here's Ric Flair. He's going to start crying. Okay. But then we actually got a surprise this evening. We had heard rumors that Paige was going to make a heel turn. We heard that maybe it would happen at Night of Champions. That didn't happen. Now the Raw show comes on, and maybe here it is. And sure enough, not only does Paige give us a heel turn, but she drops a pipe bomb about the entire Divas division that a lot of fans were thinking about. She said things like there was no Divas Revolution, it was all a bunch of nonsense, which a lot of us agree with. There really wasn't a Divas Revolution. Just because there are more of them does not make it a revolution. She said the only reason Charlotte got the belt was because she was Ric Flair's daughter, which is kind of partially true. It certainly didn't hurt. How's that? Said she was just a placeholder until Nikki Bella gets the belt back because that's the way WWE wants it. seemed to be a lot of truth in what she was saying. At the very least, it was a lot of truth from a fan perspective, because that's how people have felt, that they were really trying to force us to accept the Divas division as legitimate wrestlers while not really giving us any real change. So couldn't disagree with what she said. I like her better as a heel anyway. She's just not a superhero. She's the spoiled brat. She's 21 years old. You know, she's not 21, 22. She's relatively young. So you know what? It needs to stay that way. Sheamus versus Mark Henry, it was a throwaway match. It was just, hey, Sheamus, you're the Money in the Bank holder. You didn't really have a match at the pay-per-view, so we'll give you this match here, versus a guy who's just been with the company for a really long time, and no one really cares whether he wins or loses. Rusev teaming with the New Day is kind of strange to me, considering that their previous beefs they had. Unless Rusev was watching the end of Rocky IV, when Rocky said, if I could change, everybody can change. And Rusev was like, oh, Russia, you know, even Gorbachev clapped, so okay, I can change too. Yeah, sure. Again, New Day continues to impress me, continues to entertain. Everybody loves them. I think they're just phenomenal. Everything they do is really great. Dudleys came in, and of course they had their great match with them. I think the Dudleys are still solid workers, New Day, and they all work really well together. I'm excited to see how they're going to take that moving forward. Cena versus Rollins. Cena wins clean, and as we kind of knew he would, it wasn't really going to... They weren't going to do anything different here for this match. It was strange that Rollins was invoking his rematch clause for the U.S. title. Okay, you know, considering he got hurt and stuff like that. And I mean, yeah, Kane kind of forced him into it. And then came something that I know a lot of people didn't like, but I do. Even though it's cheesy, you know, Halloween is coming up pretty soon, but Kane appears on the Jumbotron as Corporate Kane, tells Seth Rollins, hey, you better watch out because things are going to happen. He gets that mean mug on his face. And then, of course, the fire goes off. Everyone's waiting for Kane to come down as the Demon Kane. And he doesn't come down from the ramp. He comes up from inside the ring. And he's grabbing Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins is scrambling to try to escape. And Demon Kane is pulling him into the ring. And he does this thing like in Aliens when Hudson gets pulled under by the alien. The alien kind of grabs his face and pulls him down. A lot of people hated that because they said it's too cheesy. I didn't. And then the smoke comes out afterwards. I loved it. I thought it was great. If you want me to believe all these other things, then why don't you want me to believe that? Is that the most outrageous thing WWE has done? No. I mean, there are so many fantastic elements to the show, then why can't we just throw that in there too and just really amp it up? It's one of those, it's like Troll 2. It's so bad. It's good. So you know what? I loved it. I thought it was great because where are they going to go from there? That's what I want to know. I want to keep coming back. I want to know, how are they going to address this on SmackDown? How are they going to address it on Monday Night Raw? How is the Authority going to react? You know, now that they've seen Kane, they've spoken to Corporate Kane in person. Now they've seen the Demon Kane, all this stuff. So are they going to keep up with the Corporate Kane versus Demon Kane thing? I don't know. And that's all you can really ask, is a show that keeps you coming back because you want to know the answers to these questions. So I loved it. We get a lot of promos for the next Hell in the Cell, which I'm not too excited about, only because, again, seeing an extremely old Undertaker wrestle in a match that he and Brock Lesnar already did, in 2002, and that's kind of the reason why they're bringing it back. It's October, WWE Network isn't doing well, Raw ratings are down because of Monday Night Football, and they're trying to get people excited, and they're hoping that a Hell in the Cell match is going to do that for the month of October. But again, how much does The Undertaker really have left in him? For a guy who's that old, can he really take the kind of bumps that are required of a Hell in the Cell match? I mean, is Brock Lesnar going to take the kind of bumps that Mick Foley famously took in Hell in the Cell? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. So that's all for me. Hope you enjoyed this video. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Chief Jasiola, and I post new articles every week at ProWrestlingPowerhouse.com. You can also follow them at PWP Nation on Twitter. If you got any questions for me, please shoot them my way. I'd be happy to talk wrestling or anything else with you anytime. Thanks again to TYT. Bye-bye, guys.